Alright, today we're going to talk about our favorite presidents. I know we ranked presidents a few podcasts ago, but we never went into our favorite. To start this off, Garrett, who's your favorite president?
It's probably going to be Thomas Jefferson.
Alright, why?
Who are you thinking it down to? Like, who are your tough choices?
I mean, so it'd probably be George Washington, Thomas Jefferson. Yeah, that's it.
So those two.
Fair.
Wyatt?
Mine's really not a question. I mean, I think FDR is, like, up there, like, as terms of, like, overall. Whenever you think of, like, all the important qualities of a president, I mean, he checks all the boxes. Even if you don't like his qualities, he's like, if you could just switch his ideas, right, and you could keep everything else, his personality, his ability.
If you were to make FDR more conservative,
yeah,
conservatives would have loved him.
Exactly.
And mine is obviously the great.
Wait, hold on, because I didn't get to say who I was like thinking between. So as far as like,
it was just FDR. Now go ahead, Nick.
But I was thinking, right, his cousin, right? That's his cousin. Okay,
no, uncle.
His uncle. That's right. Okay, his uncle was close,
uncle,
but honestly,
they were from Arkansas.
I've got to put Lincoln up there too. Lincoln for me was probably my number.
Lincoln's.
I mean, I have a great amount of respect for Teddy, but I still would put Lincoln and FDR like, you know.
Lincoln's a number 3.
Yeah. Anyway, go ahead, Nick. But that's who I was thinking of. Like,
mine is, I looked it up, it is his cousin, old Theodore Roosevelt Jr.
It's not Andrew Jackson?
Oh, that was the other point, was Mr. Jackson. I like Jackson. But no, it was really only Teddy. I love
If you
Teddy.
like crazy, why not just go Trump?
Because I'm not fucking retarded.
If you like mentally impaired, why not just go Biden?
well, you know, Trump may actually be crazy too.
So
yeah, Biden's just stupid.
Biden's just old.
Yeah.
Trump's fucking nuts. Andrew Jackson may have... Well, Andrew Jackson has killed people as the sitting president. That's psychotic. Anyway.
That's progressive.
Okay, so who wants to start us off?
We'll start with Wyatt. We'll start with you.
Yeah,
So
FDR is probably...
Is the first question just kind of like, why?
You know, why do you like this man?
Well, like I said, so like whenever I look at the president and I look at like stuff that is important to me for the president, I mean, you got to be a strong leader.
Charismatic.
You've got to be... I don't care about charisma, to be honest with you.
Charisma unifies, though.
Yeah, you know.
Like, charisma is like the
That's the thing. I think charisma matters way too much in America. I don't care. And then, you know, his ability, you know, to actually, like, fulfill his promises.
But that's an aspect of charisma.
To fulfill your promises.
Yeah.
No,
Getting people
you're pushing charisma, I think, past what it is. But he did have good charisma. But that, to me, is not even what makes him great. Because you can have good charisma and still not be a great uniter.
Yeah. I mean, look at Clinton.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
or Obama.
Yeah.
Obama had some, like, Hitler levels of charisma.
Yeah. I would argue, like, FDR might be the standard of, like public influence.
As far as Democrats, at least, he is probably your standard. I mean, Biden himself wants to be compared to FDR.
Yeah, and he's not. He's just not. He's just not.
You know why? Because he doesn't have the charisma.
Yeah. Well, and there's almost something intangible about leadership. It's just something a little bit past, you know, talking. But, you know, and whenever I look at, like, what he does, you know, whenever he said something, he had meant it. And that, to me, is important. Because I hate voting for people that I know don't believe in what they're saying.
Yeah.
And that sucks.
The pandering.
Yeah. So.
Well, like Black Lives Matter has not gotten a seat at the Biden administration's table.
No, not really.
Like, at all.
Yeah.
But if you listen to his 2019 and 2020 campaigns, he was all about Black Lives Matter.
Right, yeah. Yeah.
And that goes to both sides. I'm not trying to single out Biden. He's the president, so I single him out a lot. But, like,
well, like, you know, Trump tried to act like he was for the working class.
Yeah.
And it's like, dude, how? But anyway, yeah, FDR, just public, good leader. He had all the accomplishments. He wasn't just talk, either. He was able to, you know, fulfill the stuff he was telling them. And he communicated it through the entire way, and he was honest.
I think the problem was the unethical means in which he enforced what he promised.
Think so?
Yeah.
Because here's the thing.
He expanded the power of the presidency a lot to get done what he promised to get done.
I don't necessarily think that that's bad.
The expansion of power is something that I'm really uncomfortable with. Like, just personally.
Yeah.
But
this is not a Republican thing either. Republicans expand their own power when they're in power. Specifically war-making power. And I'm thinking of George W. Bush.
Yeah. But can you agree that FDR did, like, the ends justify the means? How...
I don't think the ends justify the means is a good...
He got...
Because there are multiple ways to the same end.
Well, remember, at the end of the day...
fascism and communism lead to the same amount of dead people, roughly.
I mean, he was very much like his cousin in the sense that, like, the stick works. He didn't pack the Supreme Court, but he needed the Supreme Court to think he might have.
Yeah, but so would you be okay with Biden? Like, so Biden's probably at some point... If they overturn Roe v. Wade, there's going to be a threat of Supreme Court packing. Like, 110%. So would you be okay with that? Well, like, and I guess it depends on the cause. So we also have to understand, one of the big things about FDR is he was under, like, the Great Depression was a big thing in American life, and he did what he could to fix it. Whether or not you agree with it, or whether or not, I tend to believe that people at least think they're doing what's right. So I may not agree with what FDR did, but he at least believed that what he was doing was probably what was best, right?
And, for the record, showed that what he did was for the better.
What he did worked.
Right.
Yeah.
It is not the only path, I would say.
But it was the quick and simple path.
I don't even think you could say that. I am saying FDR found one path that could work. That doesn't mean there aren't others. That doesn't mean that other ideas would have worked even remotely close to his. I'm just saying he found a path, he went down it, and he had no regrets. Okay. He thought what he was doing was for the best.
But the thing is that he also carried out the will of the people. The people were starving for an answer to the bullshit that had just happened.
Right.
And he gave them an answer that they wanted, and that benefited them.
And benefited the country.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if we're just talking about the TVA, I mean, that got a lot of people out of poverty by providing them with government-paying jobs.
Right.
Which was the big thing during the Great Depression.
He had this fundamental idea, before him, if you got laid off for work, and it wasn't your fault, the company just went out of business, you were just, SOL.
Right.
JWF. Like, shit out of luck, jolly well fucked. You were screwed.
Jolly well fucked.
And then at that point, you couldn't go to the bank. So he decided this idea of unemployment, which, is generally regarded now as a fucking handout. That's the dumbest thing
I've never regarded unemployment as a handout.
You should talk to the people you vote for.
I mean, so yeah.
But
that's another
So
thing.
the problem in unemployment was kind of like, what did JFK do?
Unemployment as an exploited system?
It was meant for you to get, sustain yourself until you got back on your feet, and now people realize they get paid more on unemployment.
They get perpetual.
And on this.
Well, the other thing he did was the idea that anyone working 40 hours a week, you deserve a living wage. That's the point of the minimum wage was never to feed high school kids, it was to feed families.
Right.
And the idea that, like, look, if you're a working man, you're not asking for a handout, you work 40 hours a week. Right. You deserve to feed a family. And not just barely. You deserve the basic, like, needs, maybe a couple of luxuries.
You deserve to be able to have...
live a little comfortable.
That was an idea that not many Americans had ever thought of.
Well, and let's kind of face it, like, corporations need moderation. And since they won't moderate themselves, and we obviously can't trust CEOs, we need some kind of government intervention. And, Republicans try to ignore this, and I myself am guilty of this. But Republicans try to be like, no, free market, free cause, yada, yada, yada. Except now, with the alphabet people, with Google, YouTube, Twitter, all this, Republicans are starting to wake up to be like, fuck, these institutions have a lot of power.
You see. We'll get into, once it's my turn, his cousin, the way he dealt with it, a lot of people say is authoritative, but it needed to be...
Well, I don't think there's any doubt that both FDR and Teddy Roosevelt acted authoritatively.
Well, that's.
I don't think there's any doubt in any rational person's mind that they acted in an authoritarian manner.
I mean, I wouldn't say authoritarian in the same sense as like Xi Jinping.
Yeah, we're not talking. Well, that's totalitarian. We're talking authoritarian as in, I think what I think, I'm going to do what I'm going to do, and I'm going to force it down your fucking throat.
Yeah.
Or...
This is the betterment of the country.
But, so you gotta think of it...
I don't care what you think.
And here's
why...
Right.
This is what's going to happen.
Now, and
here's
again,
why,
so the...
Here's why I'm not counting him, or Teddy, for that matter, or Lincoln, for that matter, as authoritarian. Is because they weren't doing this against the American people. They were doing it for the American people against the people who were against the American people.
So here's my question then: if FDR had the same policies but was against the American people, what would you say?
Well, that's authoritarian. You're going against the very people.
So my opinion is it's authoritarian regardless, but because you don't get to change the systems, like you don't get to change Congress or the Supreme Court just because you got elected to do something. Like, if the majority of America wanted you... So, let's say 60% of America wanted you to do what you did. They should also elect that same majority of Congress.
Okay, but they did. And the only thing stopping him...
Was the Supreme Court. And he threatened to pack it.
And he may have... More than likely, he probably would not. But he needed the Supreme Court to at least think that. And that's why they passed all this stuff. I could probably find the political cartoon.
But is it right? Is it right to bully the Supreme Court? The Supreme Court's a little different because they're not elected officials. They're nominated individuals who are nominated for a lifetime.
They're kind of a check and balance on the democracy itself.
But again, so here's the thing: is does the Supreme Court justify that kind of bullying?
Yeah. So
now, is it only when your opinion is the thing? So again, if they overturn Roe versus Wade, which I'm not saying this is going to think. I think this will happen, but. If they overturn Roe versus Wade, would you support packing the Supreme Court? Or threatening them to?
Depends on how many Americans thought it was a right.
So let's 60%.
I mean,
60%.
60%. If 60% thought abortion was a right, and the only thing that was keeping that from being a right was the checks and balances of the democracy itself, then, there's a real argument to be made that packing the Supreme Court is not only moral, but a necessity.
Shouldn't the people who are... Basically,
so what's something why it really supports?
So here's the problem: if the majority of the country wants it,
what if this
and we go against it, then it's no longer for the people.
So what if the Supreme Court?
It's literally it's not, like if the majority of the country wants something, they should get it, correct? Because it's by the people for the people. If you go against
within the bounds of our Constitution, though, and that's what the Supreme Court's job is to find the bounds of the Constitution.
They also can add to it.
Of the federal powers.
They can also add to it.
The Supreme Court, they can add to it, can't they? They can read things into certain laws.
They can make amendments.
Well, that's the Congress. And with 60% of Congress, you could theoretically make a new amendment.
So the problem is... So not
66%.
The Supreme Court has gotten things wrong, but it's mostly... The things they got wrong were, this is what the Constitution says...
I don't think the Supreme Court was wrong.
It says something else.
So morally wrong and constitutionally wrong are not necessarily the same things.
I agree.
So slavery was constitutionally justified, and the Supreme Court could do nothing about slavery until Congress passed the amendment. Now, theoretically, they could have said, hey, I know the Constitution says this blatantly, but they didn't do that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, so look at Jim Crow laws. The Supreme Court backed those, even though it's specific.
Because it's not an explicit power of the federal government. Mm-hmm. That's the thing. The Supreme Court's job is to temper the power of the executive and legislative branches as to the Constitution.
And so the problem is interpretation. Is who gets to interpret it. Like, so me and someone else read a book, we may interpret it differently.
Right.
And so that's where you get the problem of...
So there's a couple different kinds of ways they read the Constitution. There's a fundamentalist, or a, what's the word? It's not a fundamentalist, it's a constitutionalist. Originalism, thank you.
Yeah.
Which they look at the original context of, so they look at, the Founding Fathers' writings, and they try to establish, okay, this is clearly what they meant by that.
Okay, so let me just...
And then there's, like the word for word, verbatim, this. And then there's progressivism, which is not progressivism, it's something else. But they try to take what was originally written and progress it forward. into like a modern context. Most of the liberal justices on the court are progressivists, and again, do not quote me on that term. There's a different term for it, but they're progressivists, which is they're trying to take like that First Amendment and then they extrapolate that out to today.
So like,
or the Second Amendment, where they're like, hey,
so an example of that would be the Civil Rights Act of 1964 prevents discrimination on race and sex, but now
because there's transgenderism and
right. Well, they ruled that it applies to transgenderism, and a bunch of people were pissed because according to them, they're like, it was never intended to be written for that. And
it wasn't. But they extrapolated that out from the context of the law. To me, this
doesn't really matter, and I'll tell you why. So FDR, at his minimum, had 58 Senate seats. At his peak, he had 75. We will never see that.
We will never see that.
We will never see that in our lifetime.
They wanted FDR.
Obama had 60 for like 2.5 weeks.
And you have to understand, this is all through written word too. Like this, I think his first term was written word, but then after that they started the fireside chats, didn't they, with FDR?
No, he ran on fireside chats.
Okay, so he had the fireside chats. He was a very in-tune president. He was the first, probably. What's the word? There's a certain word I'm looking for, and I can't think of it right now.
You don't mean people's president, do you?
Maybe. I don't think
Jackson.
so.
I would honestly say people's president.
Jackson was the first.
He was very much in tune with the American people. He was communicating with them every week. So was the fireside chats?
Yeah, it was.
I don't think it was every day.
I don't know. Surely not, right? Anyway,
the president ain't got time for that.
Anyway,
I think it was a set time.
So, and the thing is that he was very dedicated to his job. And I don't mean like presidents are forced to be dedicated to their job now. Like now, it's like you are forced. You don't have a choice. Like Biden,
there's a 24-hour news cycle.
Mostly dead, is going to be active 16, 20 hours a day. Period. That's just the way it's going to work.
He has to be. Otherwise, the media would eat him alive.
But back then, America was not the superpower that we were.
We didn't have the media coverage. We didn't have.
So to be as dedicated as he was, but here's why the threat. First of all, we see stuff like packing the Supreme Court today, like literally, like we see it now. We see political bullying now. The only thing that people don't like about it when he did it is that, honestly, he just threatened it. But as far as like the whole question was, he was going to establish all of these solutions to the problems America was facing. The Senate passed it, the House passed it. And he signed it. The only question is whether the court's going to be like, yes, the federal government has this power under this clause, or no, they don't. And he told them straight up. He said, look, I don't want this. America wants this. This is what we're going to do. You can like it. You can give it a program. You can fall in line, or we're gonna add more till we do.
Right.
And whether or not that was his actual plan is not really relevant. Because the court thought that was his plan.
The drive to save 9 was,
the greatest bluff ever is when you don't bluff.
Yeah, I don't think anybody questions that FDR would have done it had he deemed it necessary. Yeah, had the Supreme Court overturned it, I think he would have packed the Supreme Court, and he had the votes.
If he saw that it was the last option he had, that he had to pack those Supreme Courts, I think he would.
When you disagree with what FDR did, you're disagreeing with what the American people wanted. Mm-hmm. Now, you can argue, and I would probably argue, that what the American people wanted was something immediate, not something long-term. But, to FDR's credit, a lot of his policies had sunset clauses.
Yeah.
And it was just Congress who continued these policies on and on and on into modernity.
Right.
So that's not on FDR per se. That is on.
So some of it. So you would be talking more about like Social Security. You would say that's a temporary fix, or was intended to be a temporary fix. Okay, I know unemployment was not, and I know all the regulations he put in place were not.
Right.
Because like it or not, those regulations were necessary.
But a lot of his regulations have been repealed.
That's what I'm saying. We don't have much FDR stuff on the books anymore.
Glass-Steagall got basically stripped.
That was under Clinton.
Yeah, they ripped completely. Just.
Which is stupid.
Because we got Clinton, who is corrupt as all fucking get out, right? and he happens to be really big friends with the banking industry.
And Jeffrey Epstein, who didn't kill himself.
Who definitely didn't video game himself. We're trying not to get demonetized. the going term online is he's
unalived.
going to video game himself.
Video game himself.
I was always heard unalived.
Unalived, yeah. I've seen that on...
But, so he passed, Bill Clinton repealed it. We had Republican Congress and a corrupt as fuck Democrat, and we repealed it. And it's like, well, what are you going to do? Well, you should, it crashed the economy within 10 years. It didn't take 10 years, and they unfucked up everything he had killed. And, at the end of the day, that's what I like most. And part of it is
because Republicans were on board.
He was able and willing to, like his cousin, put the chains on the corporations that they needed. He just needed sort of the proof to the American people that they needed it.
Right. And that proof came in the form of a Great Depression.
Yeah. And then as far as, foreign policy, he was like, look, I can't enter this war right now because my people are still, poor and starving. We're just building back, We
were in the midst of our reconstruction when World War II hit.
And when Pearl Harbor happened, I wouldn't have rather had Washington in power. I mean that seriously. No one could have handled the catastrophe of that better than
Washington in context. So Washington would have no idea how to handle World War II. Obviously, in context, if you dropped him from 1776.
No, but I'm saying.
Yeah, if you'd brought Washington forward, I'd have probably had Washington. To be perfectly honest with you, but FDR did a great job. Yeah. And honestly, you can't blame any president, Republican, Democrat, no matter what. If you get an attack like Pearl Harbor on American soil, it doesn't matter what that little letter next to your name is. We're at war.
Yeah.
Because the American people are at war.
I mean, we were pretty explicit. We were going to go to war in Europe, for sure.
Upwards of 8 million people dead at that point.
Yeah, they were going to have to.
Because I know Hitler went on a real, killing... Once the Allies started pushing towards Germany, he was like, "Oh, we're just gonna have to kill them all instead of using slave labor."
Speed up the process. They didn't use it for slave labor. He just wanted.
That's what's so people don't understand. The goal of the Nazis wasn't just world domination; it was death.
Yeah.
Gays, I beheld a rider on a pale horse, and his name was fucking Hitler.
So, but I don't know. It's FDR to me just kind of takes the cake.
I could see that, and I can respect your opinion. And I give a lot of shit to FDR, but to be honest, the more you look into him, the more that he was just doing what he was elected to do. He got the congressional support via the electorate to do what he wanted to do.
Right. The only thing holding him back was the support.
I mean, we can argue all day long on whether or not what the American people wanted was good for long term or good for not. But even then, his policies had sunset clauses. Even FDR was like, hey, this can't go on into perpetuity. It was Congress and the presidents after him who were not willing to attack entitlements that drove this on into modernity.
And that's I'm not even against necessarily some of the I'm not against Social Security at all, to be honest with you. But
I think the American people would do more with their money privately than they would for Social Security. But we can have that discussion without blaming FDR.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And that's the big thing to me.
But as far as I know Social Security did have a sunset clause. It actually had a couple.
Yeah.
But unemployment did not. The idea that he had was that, look, if you get laid off and it's just not your fault, I think the wording is if you're of no fault of your own.
You're entitled.
You're entitled. And you pay into it. That's the thing. Not just anyone. It's not welfare.
Right. It's
called welfare. But
that's
not welfare.
See, and that's what dictates. I don't view Social Security as an entitlement. Because you do pay into it your entire working life. There are generations after FDR, we paid into Social Security our entire lives. We deserve a return on that investment.
We are entitled, I would say.
I wouldn't say entitled.
Because you don't like the word entitled.
I don't like the word entitled, but, arose by any other name.
You're kind of forced to also pay into it.
That's the thing, is you are forced to pay into it. Therefore...
Entitlement is the right word.
Here's the problem with that argument, though. And it's an argument that... I don't make because I don't think it should end. But the thing is that you're not paying Social Security for you. That's the biggest myth ever told.
You're paying it for the generation after you.
No, you're paying for now.
Oh,
you see what I'm saying? You are not supposed to pay Social Security for yourself. That is your kid's job, really your grandkid's job.
Well, then by that logic, it had to extend into perpetuity.
Well, the whole point of Social Security is that remember the banks failed. you couldn't have retirement. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, because all the money you'd
save.
Well, there was also, that's another thing. FDR is there was no remember FDIC.
Yeah.
There was no the banks didn't have to insure your money. So if the banks lost your money, which what banks do is they take your money and they invest it elsewhere to make themselves money. And if the banks lost money on that deal, you lost your fucking money.
Yeah. Yeah. Didn't matter how much you had.
Yeah. So remember FDIC, where you are insured up to $100,000 per bank. That's definitely a good thing. I don't think anybody would argue against that.
And, you know, the idea is that, like, hey, there should be a difference between, like, commercial banking, which is people who buy homes or they want to start a business in their community, versus investment banking where you're going to, like Walmart, or you're going to invest in, you know, the stock market, like, big name companies. Like, splitting those up was probably a good idea because, and then, you know, telling, like, the big banks, like, hey, you can't merge and, you know,
you can't leave a town with one bank. Because when that bank goes under,
here's the thing.
You end up with the fucking Great Depression.
Well, here was the problem after.
Or you end up with an Obama era. We have to bail them fucking out because you are all.
Well, here's the last thing, and then we'll go off to Teddy or Garrett's choice. But the idea of like when you invest your money into the bank today, very rarely is that gonna. I mean, yeah, it's gonna be put towards maybe a house or two in your community. That's not going to your restaurant in your community. That's not going. You know, that's not going to your schools. That's going to New York.
Right.
FDR
they're gonna go invest in the stock.
Originally said that no, you can't do that, and there are less regulations for a commercial bank because, you know, it's supposed to incentivize more investment in the community.
Because commercial investment is so they're loaning to small business owners, they're loaning to homeowners, they're loaning to
That was the idea. It didn't stay that way, but it was a good idea when we had it. But ultimately, just Great Depression, World War II, leading the fucking country out of all of that.
Also fighting polio the whole time.
Yeah, the man was dying for the past 8 years of his presidency, and he had to take the heat of a world war a continent away, and somehow be able to bounce out of the middle class. I don't know how we finished as good as we did. It's a miracle.
I'm surprised he didn't drive him closer, sooner into the grave.
I probably did.
Yeah.
Or he just embraced the fact that it was his own death. He embraced his own mortality.
Well, if there's anything that's true, there have been a couple of rulers, I mean rulers as in, just kind of, broad, presidents, kings,
monarchs,
prime ministers,
emperors.
Just, people in charge. I didn't mean rulers as in, authoritarian tyranny. But anyway, so, who, really, buy in, they want to succeed. And, there are a couple of, that in America's history. FDR is one of them.
Well, and the thing with those people is there's not always, so that drive to succeed often drives to tyranny. So, Hitler, I would say, was the same. I mean, Hitler regarded FDR as America's Führer.
Yeah.
In personal letters. So I'm not saying that everyone with FDR's attitude had the same... I mean,
I would say America believed in FDR
I would say that Germany believed in Hitler, though. So just because you have the support of everybody doesn't mean that you're doing what's right. At least morally speaking.
Yeah, but
even now we I mean, we just got done talking about how the American people okay atrocities throughout the world.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Because it's what's best for America. Selfishness is the downfall of human civilization.
Yeah.
Period. Global, national, whatever.
But I don't know. I don't know what FDR did that was really selfish towards all of because everything he accomplished, he did not necessarily for himself. He was fine. He was a fucking aristocrat in America in the 1930s.
Oh, I'm not trying to insinuate that FDR did it all for himself. I mean, I'm not saying that he was operating on profit margins for his own sake. But I'm just saying you have to understand that this whole argument that he did what the people wanted, so did Hitler. So did Mussolini.
Well, kind of.
I mean, yes. I mean, so Hitler at one point had 73% of the majority in Germany. I'm just... that was before World War II started. That was on a downhill, but I think his lowest was only 59% in Germany.
I thought you said on the Totalitarian podcast that he never crossed 50 in Parliament. Nick, am I mistaken?
I don't remember.
I could very well be mistaken.
I know Hitler was very popular.
He was very popular.
He built a coalition in Germany because they don't have a two-party system. They have a multi-party system, and then he sided with 2 or 3 of the right-leaning coalitions. The religious right and I think the corporate right. And that's how he built the majority, because it was basically the socialists were going to take over. Like they were doing in the rest of Europe, and Hitler was like, hey, y'all really hate the socialists,
right?
But I'm your best hope because I have like a 20-something% majority. So it's like in the
he gained a majority, and then
he gained a majority because he had the biggest section,
but also
of this other majority
to kind of combat the whole idea. I mean, he is kind of the one that defeated Hitler.
He is the one who defeated Hitler. There's really no. I mean, he didn't defeat the Japanese.
He was going to.
He was going to, except we dropped bombs.
Well, he was dead at the time.
I was about to say, I think he may have been even.
Did he die in office?
Yeah. That's why.
Wow.
He died before VE Day too.
So he would. Oh, that's a shame.
Yeah, he didn't even get to see the capture.
We knew.
No, he got to see Berlin captured.
No. Did he?
Yeah, because after
Berlin captured by the Russians or Berlin captured by the Americans?
No,
because those are two different.
I don't even know that we ever captured Berlin. We got what Russia gave us.
Yeah, right.
Pretty much. But no, there is. I think after that they met. Because there's a famous picture, I think.
Well, it's a shame they didn't hang Hitler's corpse to...
Stalin, and Churchill could have literally ran the world.
Oh, no doubt.
That would have been
absolutely
an alliance the world has never seen.
A lot of people don't get... Churchill gets a lot of props in World War II.
Yeah.
If Britain falls,
but here's the thing.
But you have to realize Churchill wasn't elected until part of the way through World War II, right?
I have no idea.
I think it was a few years into World War II when Churchill gets elected.
Yeah.
And then Churchill's like, come at me, you Nazi fucking cunts.
It would have been very interesting, because FDR did most of this stuff kind of as he went along. It was like, let's not worry about after the war, let's worry about, like, winning the war right now. So we actually don't really know what his plans were. Really what they were. Was he going to be peaceful with Stalin? Probably fucking not. But... we have no idea.
There was a lot of...
I don't mean peaceful.
We lost a lot of people.
A lot allying with... Yeah, so Russia. Anyway, we need to move on to Teddy.
We're going to go to Teddy?
Well, no, let's go to Garrett. So Garrett, what was yours?
So I'm gonna be straight with you. I've got pretty much what everybody heard about Thomas Jefferson in history class. So I really admire his laissez-faire attitude towards the economy. Now, I'm not saying it was perfect. But his kind of live and let live philosophy is really what I live my life by. So you can't, you've probably, if you listen to this podcast, you hear me bitch about transgenders, you hear me bitch about, and the reason that I feel like it's different is because this, I can't remember what podcast it's on, but Nick and Wyatt both brought up, like, you believe in Atlantis, why can't we shit on you for that idea? Which you guys do regularly shit on me for that idea.
Damn right I do.
So the difference is I'm not advocating that Atlantis be taught in history class. That's kind of the thing here. Like we shouldn't be.
Not many people are advocating for a biology class, but they are arguing for it in like a sociology class.
It doesn't matter. I mean, if you want to talk about it in like a psychology class where it's an instance of the human mind, that's fine. I guess sociology kind of covers pretty much everything cultural, so I suppose that would be fine. But we've already been into, like, there are schools, like elementary and high schools, that are teaching this, where there aren't psychology or sociology classes. These are, I mean, I guess there is humanitarians class in high school level education, but it doesn't really.
So yeah, I mean, if you want to teach it in like the humanities class, like I honestly have
it depends on what context you're teaching it. You just don't teach it in a science class. You don't teach that there are multiple genders in a science class. There are 2 genders biologically. There's male and female, and you can pretend to be whatever you want, and I will call you whatever you want if you decide.
There's a very low, rare chance that you are both at the same time.
Yeah, it's less than 1%.
There's always X, 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 Y, or X, X, Y, but there's never a fucking Z in there.
No, there's always XX or XY. It just depends on what, like, so intersex people, they represent. So they're either XX or XY, but they represent both or one. And even if they represent both, only one is functional. Yeah. So functional reproduction wise.
Yeah.
So that's kind of, as far as Thomas Jefferson, like I said, he was really hands off. Now, he was hands-off to every aspect of America except for Manifest Destiny, which he's probably the single leader in the fruition of Manifest Destiny. Would you guys agree with that? I mean, he doubled the size of the United States.
Yeah.
During his presidency. So. Now, this guy wasn't perfect. I know he owned slaves. I know he had sex with a lot of slaves.
He raped a lot of slaves.
Probably against their will. Yeah. You can't know what you don't know.
Slavery, sold his own children.
Yeah, into slavery. Yeah.
You know.
Weird though. He fought for the ending of the slave trade.
So Washington mentioned that it was morally reprehensible that we still own slaves, but he himself owned slaves, and he admitted to the Constitution that they weren't going to address slavery.
So if you read Founding Fathers' writing, they all agree that slavery was immoral.
I wouldn't say all.
Not all. No. The vast majority, the ones we actually like, Washington, Jefferson.
The northern ones, the ones we like.
Yeah. So the
most of them.
The most impactful.
Was John Jay from the South?
No.
John Jay was.
The most impactful ones we know of,
thought
Jefferson
slavery from the South.
Yeah, they thought slavery was immoral. But the problem was the real question was, what do you do with all the slaves if you freed them? And they didn't.
Even Lincoln struggled with that question.
They simply didn't have an answer. And so they thought it was better. We'll deal with it later.
Well, it didn't take much to once you had learned about the transatlantic slave trade. That may be one of the worst forms of slavery we've seen since the Romans. Yeah. The stuff that they were doing in Europe.
Even I don't think the Romans were that bad because at least the Romans weren't.
It's arguably the worst slavery that this world has ever seen. Even in Egypt, when they were building the pyramids, those were highly skilled artisans.
Well, okay, hang on, because so the Egyptians, the people who carved the blocks, were highly skilled artisans. Mm-hmm. The people who moved the blocks were not highly skilled artisans.
They weren't exactly.
So that's something. The only reason I mentioned that, but you require 5 architects to 100 slaves.
Yeah.
To move the blocks, absolutely.
So I think the burial grounds, they've got thousands of people buried, artisans buried next to these pyramids and stuff. But as far as Jefferson goes, I mean, the question's going to be, hey, can we have a statue of him? Can you have a statue of someone who owned slaves?
Yeah.
Yes.
Can you build a statue of someone who owned slaves?
No.
So, if we were going to build a new statue of Thomas Jefferson, it's because we know now. They may not have known then, or it may not have been a big a deal then.
I would say yeah.
Deal. It's a big deal now.
It's the same thing. Could you build a new statue of Washington? Absolutely. Could you build a monument to Lincoln? Absolutely. You know what Lincoln advocated for? Shipping them back to Africa.
Well, there's a possibility.
And he wouldn't have even ended slavery. In his own writings, he wouldn't have ended slavery if he didn't find it absolutely necessary. But yes, you should build, because these are the founders. These are the people who built our nation, as flawed as they were. If you can build a monument to George Floyd, who pistol-whipped and robbed a woman with 2 children in her home with 5 other dudes, and you can build a monument because he's a martyr, then abso-fucking-lutely you can build a monument to our founding fathers, as flawed as they were.
Okay, so George Floyd may have been flawed. Did he,
was flawed.
I don't think you understand. Owned a human being as property, raped women against their will.
Floyd did it.
And sold his children into slavery. Would not grant them freedom. That's a level of evil.
You're still...
And I'm not even saying I hate Jefferson. I'm just saying
you're also assuming they mistreated their slaves. Besides depriving them of their freedom, which of course is probably the gravest. Raping them.
Beating the shit out of them?
See, that's the thing. Probably didn't beat slaves.
Do you know what a runaway mark is?
Yeah, runaways, yes. But not, generically, you didn't beat your slaves.
It's not true.
That is so not true.
Historically, just not true, man. You gotta quit watching PragerU. You gotta fact check their sources. I'm telling you, man. This is just...
I don't watch PragerU.
They can't... I don't know where you're getting it. What did you think being a slave was like in the South?
You picked cotton.
Okay.
Man, did you watch that one Boondocks episode where Uncle Ruckus is telling them how slavery is, and they're out there having a sing-along party?
I don't think... If I'm not allowed to watch PragerU, you're not allowed to watch Boondocks and then use it as...
Boondocks isn't claiming to be historically accurate.
I'm just saying, I can pull up photos right now of slaves.
I'm just saying, we could build monuments to morally flawed people now, correct?
You're just going to go over that point. I love that.
What point?
About the slaves being beaten or...
Okay, so let's assume slaves were beaten. I'm not saying that saying... God damn it!
We don't have to assume
I have to get it out.
We don't have to assume anything. We know. I'm going to just have the...
Let's say we know that our founding fathers did certain reprehensible acts. Correct?
Okay, for sure all of them did. They are human.
I said...
I'm agreeing with you. God damn it, Garrett. Quit taking everything personal.
I'm not taking it personally. God bless America, Wyatt. I know. You know how to push my buttons and you enjoy doing it.
It's funny!
Even if they were morally reprehensible in some of their actions, we can still build monuments and honor the good aspects of their life. Okay? If we can do that for George Floyd, and we can do that for people in modernity who did reprehensible acts, but still should not have died the way they did. Martin Luther King beat his wife. Okay? I think we would all agree.
Where does that line get drawn? Like Mao? Does Mao deserve a statue?
I mean, if the Chinese want it.
So Mao doesn't. Okay.
I mean, whoever wants to buy a statue, like if I want to build a statue, I think I have every right to build whoever I want.
I'm not talking about your. It's a normative thing. So should you or should you not? It's not whether or not you can or cannot.
Should not be tearing down statues of our founding fathers.
I mean,
because they did
founded China.
Reprehensible acts that were condoned in the society they lived in.
Okay.
There we go. That's a good measure of it.
So comparing them against the times that they were in. Okay. That's fair.
So, George Floyd has several murals and a couple statues. I don't know any man worth his salt that thinks that beating a woman and robbing her is okay. Right?
Not any man. I mean, it happens.
I mean, yeah, okay. So, like, I think the crime statistics are like 3 people per 1,000.
Okay.
Would agree that violent crime was okay.
Well, no, that's just the people who commit it. That's not necessarily the people that disagree or agree with it.
Oh, good Lord, you're exhausting.
I'm just making you think.
No,
He's had
exhausting me.
He's had a couple of shots, so his mind's wearing.
What shots have I taken? Like, I've been the most generous to FDR I have ever been in this podcast.
I'm not attacking Jefferson. I like Jefferson. What did I give him on the podcast? I gave him like an A or B or something high.
That's fair.
It was just an ethical question. God damn it! Quit taking everything so goddamn personal. I'm just
asking. It's not personal
because this is a common current events topic. Like, can we make these statues? Like, they're questioning Lincoln, for God's sakes. you think what? This is fucking.
You judge people in the context of their time. So, like, a person now who owns slaves, we would all say you probably shouldn't build a statue to that person, right?
Okay.
Like, no one's building a statue to Xi Jinping.
Okay.
Well,
the Chinese are.
There's 1 billion people building statues to Xi Jinping, but in America, we're not doing that.
But what's the difference if we built a statue of Thomas Jefferson today? Because we know he had slaves. The Chinese people know that, Xi Jinping may, enforce it, I guess, but he doesn't actually own them.
So no one currently alive was wronged by Jefferson. No one currently alive. I think they would be honoring him. If I decided to go build a Thomas Jefferson statue, it would be for all the right reasons.
No.
I'm not built.
Okay, you stole my point, though. That's what I was going to say. I was like, we're not honoring the slavery aspect of Thomas Jefferson.
We're honoring the founding father aspect.
Right, and just like we're not honoring the famine of Mao, right?
Honestly, that's all I know about Mao is the bunches and bunches of dead folk.
Wow. Okay.
I'm not Chinese, so I guess that would be my answer. Is if we were to build a statue of Thomas Jefferson now, it would not be to honor the flawed aspects of him. It would be to honor the admirable aspects of him. And that's the thing is, like, if you weren't going to build statues to flawed people, you would have no statues. Right?
I'm not necessarily against no statues, to be honest with you.
I mean, it is a pride.
Statues are
weird concept
to
me
great
anyway.
Historical significance.
Okay, so I'll be honest with you. Like the Confederates, take them the fuck down. Pretty much, pretty much all of them.
Move them.
Move them to a museum.
Move them to battlefields. Move them to Gettysburg.
Even then, I don't want these men.
I'm okay with you. So, like, Robert E. Lee should probably not stand. So, I understand if you're in Virginia and you have a statue of Robert E. Lee outside. If I was Virginian, what I would be thinking is, this man chose state over country. And I understand to both of you guys that would be negligible. But to me as a Virginian, yeah, absolutely. I'm a Virginian first.
Even when your side was wrong.
Even when your side was wrong.
I think the true like statesman would have spoken up against his side when his side was morally wrong.
Thomas Jefferson didn't.
So the problem
George Washington did. George Washington. No, he didn't. It was Kentucky.
So the problem is, a lot of the Confederate soldiers were lied to on why they were fighting.
We know.
Well, I don't think we're not talking about the army right now.
But even then.
And even then, some of the soldiers did fight for slavery.
Yes. Because their families probably owned plantations.
Yeah. I don't think so.
So for sure, some of their, like, the officers...
Would you send your kid to fight and die in the Civil War? Would your kid go and fight?
In that age, yes.
Well, that's what some people did, is what we're saying.
Like, it's facts. Like, the South could not have sustained itself without both the monetary and the physical support of the plantation owners. Mm-hmm. Most the officers would have been sons of plantation owners, but it still would have been.
So officers are never seeing.
But you're talking about the common people.
The common farmers are the ones actually.
Most common people were probably lied to. I'm not arguing that. Because the states' rights thing was just pure propaganda. Mm-hmm. I think we've discussed that on the podcast before. But
as far as achievements for Jefferson, yeah.
So we've got the fulfillment of Manifest Destiny. At least
Louisiana Purchase, one of the biggest.
Louisiana Purchase.
He also founded the University of Virginia.
Okay.
Trying to think. There's a couple others.
He did stop the slave trade.
Big one. Separation of church and state.
Yeah.
That was during the founding. That wasn't during his presidency. But I guess if we're giving... Was it really?
Yeah. So this, some Baptist, started writing him a letter. And, this is where he tells him, like, there is an eternal wall of separation between church and state. And eventually, that gets read, like, that exact phrasing gets read into the Constitution.
Yeah. Well, he was the author, of the Declaration of Independence, not the Constitution. But you can read his mentality into the Constitution because he was there to help write it.
Right.
Yeah.
I think he was in France during the writing.
The Constitution?
Yeah, I think he was in France at the time. I'm almost like 90% sure he was in France.
I have no idea.
I don't know either. I know if it was during the Revolution,
Benjamin
Franklin was in France.
I'll tell you this: Thomas Jefferson was for sure more pro-France than pro
England. Yeah,
that's why I think that's why he was in France, just to solidify an ally.
Yeah, but he was the president. If he was the president of the United States at the time, he would not have been in France.
This is during the writing of the Constitution.
So this is before we're even.
But during the writing of the Constitution, Franklin was the ambassador to France.
Yeah, I think Jefferson was.
Because Franklin was fucking his way across Europe.
No, the reason I know this is because I watch a guy on YouTube, and some lunatic, they're building a statue of Jefferson, and it says the writer of the...
Knowing the context of what Jefferson wrote, we can probably assume that he would have agreed that there is a separation of church and state. One, he would have been deemed a heretic in Europe. Like, literally burnt...
Jefferson?
Yeah.
I think Jefferson did a lot. He invented the swivel chair.
I didn't know that.
I didn't know that either.
Pretty sure he did.
Fucking king of useless knowledge.
Hey, yo!
Okay.
Really what I admire about Jefferson is his hands-off attitude. That there was no need...
Not my monkeys, not my circus.
Yeah. Like, there was no need for the government to interfere in the everyday lives of Americans unless certain criteria were met. Very strict criteria were met.
So here's my thing, though. Had he have gotten his way, America we'd never become a superpower. And to some people, that's fine.
See, I'm going to say the same thing I did with FDR about finding a solution to the Great Depression. There is no guarantee that Jefferson's way wouldn't have led to a different solution that led to the same conclusion.
No. It limits his cap, because without the rise of federal power, you can't have the rise of your country's supremacy. It just doesn't work.
I don't know that that's true.
Okay, could you name me a libertarian country that has ever been the world's superpower?
Well, no, because they all go to federal power.
They don't exist.
They all condone.
Because they want more... Anyway,
so the EU. England ran to worldwide power and then joined the EU. What
do you mean?
A lot of European countries joined the EU, but prior to that, they had been superpowers.
Okay, I'm with you.
So, considering they're each the size of states, I'm just saying, each state could have been its own superpower. But if you look at it from... So, the United States is basically an EU sort of confederation, correct?
I mean, I would say
states means country.
We're a lot more than just a trade union, I would argue. But
states legit is a synonym for country.
Well, so the EU's a lot more than just a trade union. Like Germany, Brussels gets to dictate immigration policy. That's what pissed England off.
Yeah. Well, I mean, everyone gets a vote.
So that's a lot more than a fucking trade union, wouldn't you say?
No, that's exactly...
Like a trade...
You think a trade union... Okay, so think of it like this. Can you travel from Oklahoma to Texas without a passport?
Yes.
Okay, that's all it's saying. It's saying free travel within the union. The thing that...
No, I said immigration.
Right, the thing is that Brussels is in the middle of the EU. At the edge, actually. So when the immigrants get there, what the fuck are they supposed to do?
No, but it wasn't Brussels that had an issue. It was England.
I know, but that's what I'm saying. So by the time immigrants get to France or Belgium, what the hell are they supposed to do? You know what I'm saying?
I think each state could have individually been a superpower, because England and France and Spain were all superpowers. Now, in modernity, that may be different.
Okay.
It's proven that state-sized locales could be superpowers.
Size isn't the issue.
What is the issue then?
The structure and the power of your philosophy limits your cap. You know? So think of it like this. So a very libertarian country would be like Norway. They are a lot of things, but they are not
was a
global
superpower for a while.
Not whenever they were like this.
The Vikings were.
I wouldn't call them a global superpower.
Yeah, they were. They traded all the way to fucking Egypt and the Mediterranean. Absolutely, they were a global superpower.
I think you're really stretching what it means to be a global superpower.
They didn't have influence.
Yeah, nobody took their consideration.
Tell England that.
Well, England was getting
or
raped.
France.
England was a laughing stock at this point.
Again, tell France or
France.
It's just Normandy.
They were just
it's just Normandy that was
probably
owned
Greece.
by the things.
No, that's true. They failed at Paris, didn't they? Twice.
Well, they just wanted Normandy. They didn't want anything else. And the Franks said, "Hey, if you want to be our..."
And the Vikings had a couple of wins, but it was nothing long term. You know. Even then, that's not necessarily modern.
How many Vikings do you see anymore?
And even then, that's
power.
The peak. You know, that's peak federal
Alexander
power,
the Great. Alexander the Great was libertarian.
What? Okay.
Well, no, he had you pay taxes.
Establishing a police state?
Well, he let you believe. The reason I said that is because he let you believe in whatever gods you wanted.
Yeah.
So that's not exactly. That doesn't make that in and of itself doesn't make him libertarian, because he still had you paying taxes to the Greek Empire
and his
or the Macedonian
police state.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, it limits.
I think Thomas Jefferson's the greatest president ever, because he left you alone.
That's fair. And even, I've met some people, some real libertarians, and they're like, even if it means we were never going to be a world superpower, they said they would have taken. So Nick, tell us what Teddy.
Oh, how much do you want to know about Teddy?
I want to know everything about Teddy.
Yeah. So what qualities does Teddy have that you like so much? That's what I want.
Just his attitude.
Okay.
I will say Teddy's attitude's pretty great.
So let's be honest, the biggest and baddest man so far that's been stated.
You mean physique wise?
Yeah.
Apparently he was a muscular guy when he was younger.
He was a boxer.
Well, he was a.
He was very, how we say it nowadays, jacked as shit.
No, he wouldn't have been jacked.
No, he was.
He'd have been muscular, not jacked.
No, he was. Daddy was a jacked man. Not in today's standards, but back then, boy was like a Greek god.
I will say, like, the old picture of, like, it's like this guy. The famous
He's
got a mustache. Is that Teddy?
No, it's not Teddy. Teddy's the...
That's what I asked, though, because I thought whenever he said he was a boxer, I was like, no way that's
No,
him.
the famous picture is him. He's sitting in a chair like this, and he's got the big old mutton chops.
I like him less now.
So, yeah, he's not like his
mutton
cousin.
chops were in now, damn it.
He's not like his cousin FDR, who could pull puss out of, anywhere. He brought a snorkel because he was in Fanny Creek at the end of the night. But, very frail kid. He had asthma, very bad asthma. Thought wasn't gonna live past 4. He wanted to go. He was stayed inside all the time. He was homeschooled. He wanted every time he'd go outside and play with kids. He couldn't, and his father said, you have the mind, you lack the body. And so that drove him to being outdoorsy and stuff to build his body up.
It's like, fuck you, watch me.
He became, a boxer, very good boxer. His way of dealing with grief was pretty uncommon. His first wife and mother died on the same day.
That's tough.
In his journal, he says, "The light is gone from my world," and so he finished. He was a governor, I believe, in New York. He finished his term out, and he said, "I'm moving to the Dakotas." Moved to the Dakotas, hung out with real mountain men and cowboys, and he says they whipped the wussy out of me. And he credits his time out in the Dakotas that if he didn't go out there, he wouldn't have ever been president. He wouldn't have been the man he was. Avid outdoorsman. From a very young age, he was a taxidermist. He loved taxidermy. He had his own Theodore Roosevelt Natural History Museum, where he would shoot birds anytime his family went abroad or something, and he would stuff them and bring them back. This museum was his bedroom. Outdoors husband, did not know he was blind until he was like 18.
He was also obsessed with wildlife, wasn't he?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, he was very outgoing. His mother, especially.
Not to mess up your timeline of story changing, by the way. Sorry.
No. So I guess when he was in his late teens, he was very bad at shooting, which was funny. He couldn't
Is it because he couldn't see?
Yeah, he was very nearsighted.
Oh, okay.
He did not know he was nearsighted until a bunch of boys dared him to throw a rock at a billboard, and he said, "I could not even see the letters on the billboard." Told his dad. He got glasses, and he basically said, "Oh, so this is what the world actually looks like."
So he was operating with a handicap his entire fucking life
much.
And was still an outdoorsman.
Yes. And he was a vice president, and then William McKinley dies, becomes the youngest U.S. president at 42. And
wait, that's how he won office?
That's how he was.
I thought he won an election.
He did win an election.
Okay.
But that's how his first term went.
I did not know that about him.
I didn't either.
He was vice president. A lot of people thought he was clearly a good party leader, because he ran on basically he was going to clean up Washington. He got all the political
drain the swamp.
And so what he used to do when he was a sheriff at some point, he would take midnight walks to make sure his deputies were doing their job. So much so that the media would follow him, which kind of ruined, the whole undercover bit of his thing. And he basically was like, "Yeah, I love these midnight strolls." I think everyone knows him for the trust busting that he did.
So before that, I do know that he ran for president one time, and he had lost because it was rigged. Right? So, yeah. So he ran for president one time, and
I think you
the
told the story
Rockefellers
before.
put up. So there were 2 Republican candidates on the national ballot to split up the vote.
Mm-hmm.
So they rigged it against him.
That's his third one.
That's his third one?
That's the...
So after he had already
1912. That's when Woodrow Wilson won.
So they were pissed off about all the trust busting.
That's when... that's when he... was gonna do. That's when he did the Bull Moose Party.
Yeah. He's gonna break.
That was the election.
Well, he did, but
that was the election
right?
of 1912 where Woodrow Wilson won.
Okay. Oddly enough, he made Oklahoma a state, if you didn't know.
Yep.
1907? Something like that.
Wait for Garrett to get back before I tell one of the interesting facts. And Garrett's back. So he is, we all know, the youngest president at 42.
At the time.
I think, no, he's the youngest.
Yeah, because JFK was the youngest president ever.
No, he's, I think, the youngest.
I think JFK won in his 30s.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
I'm fairly positive.
Yeah, I'm 100%.
I don't know. I googled youngest president. It's Teddy at 42.
Bitch.
Look it up.
Continue the story.
Well, either way, he. I told Wyatt this on the way here. He's the first ever president to have dinner with a black man. Not just any black man. Booker T. Washington.
Great. John F. Kennedy.
No, son of a bitch.
Oh.
Oh, son of a bitch.
No! Theodore Roosevelt, 42, 1 year before JFK.
Suck my bull moo cock, you fucking faggot. I told you.
JFK was elected at 43.
So,
I know. Why? I'm not used to being proven wrong by Nick either.
Back to Teddy. Yeah, he had dinner with Booker T. Washington. And it wasn't supposed to be dinner. So he promised his son Kermit. Yes, he has a son named Kermit.
The frog.
Yeah. So he promised his son that he'd have dinner with him. He also promised Booker T. Washington he would meet with him. He said, well, fuck it. We'll do it at the same time. It was not uncommon to have African Americans in the White House. What was uncommon was for them to dine with you. Mostly because in the South, if you invited another man to dinner, you were basically saying, you can now marry my daughter. It's a big no-no in the South. Teddy said, get fucked.
Good on him. Good on Teddy.
The social context had probably changed, but
he also won a Peace Prize. Famously, he built the Panama Canal.
Yeah.
And then basically made Panama independent.
Well, you just kind of shied over the Nobel Peace Prize. He was the first to win it?
I think the first president
to
win
it. Like, before him. Because in 1860, was that even a thing? I don't know. So Lincoln couldn't have won.
No, don't give me...
I have no idea.
So, we all know the Rough Riders?
Yes.
All volunteers. Basically, he went to a fucking bar and said, hey, who wants to go fuck up some Cubans? And they all went, hey, this guy's bringing the beer.
Oh, it's Teddy.
And so, basically, there's Kettle Hill and San Juan Hill that they were trying to take. No one thought that a bunch of infantry could take a heavily fortified area.
They would have been cavalry, right? The Rough Riders were cavalry.
They were cavalry, but also infantry. And basically, it was basically a suicide mission. And he basically said, gentlemen, I'm not gonna ask you to do something I would not do myself. Grabbed his pistol and said, let's fucking ride. And a bunch of the soldiers said the only reason they actually rode was because Teddy was leading the charge.
He had a lot of Jackson in him.
He would run up and down giving orders. His horse got shot and died, so he got up and proceeded to run across the battlefield giving orders.
It sounds like Grant.
And he came into the 9th Division. And the 9th Division was basically hold up, not moving. He said, well, gentlemen, if you're not going to move, get the fuck out of the way of my men. And then 9th said, son of a bitch, let's join them. They took Kettle Hill and they said, well, why don't we take all the momentum and take San Juan? And then they took San Juan Hill. And he used that heavily.
So he was a military leader.
Yes.
This whole experience about Teddy has just been fucking fascinating.
Fun fact.
Please continue.
The pistol he had was on the sinking of the Lusitania. Or not, the Maine. Whatever fucking ship they sunk.
Lusitania.
That caused us to go to war with the Spanish. They got the pistol. They got the pistol back. They gave it to Teddy. And Teddy used that. It's in the famous Rough Rider pictures. It was at a museum where he stayed. It got stolen for 16 years. Until another guy went to a friend's house and they said, yeah, my husband has this old revolver. And he looks at it and he goes,
son of a bitch!
That's Teddy's fucking pistol. Called the museum, FBI came, took the pistol back. Fucking want to buy the pistol.
You'd never afford that.
One of his pistols sold for $1.2 million. No shit.
Yeah, so we have to get to like PewDiePie levels on YouTube. Which,
Pretty
good
much.
luck. We're talking
About Teddy.
Okay. National parks.
Was very advocate of the national parks. Establish it. Any of your conservation is owed to Teddy. Teddy did the wildlife. Any wildlife management you have is thanks to Teddy. He put forth that issue. After he was done being president, he went to Africa and killed a lot of animals. Around 2,000.
good.
At least he sent 2,000 to the Smithsonian. Him and his son Kermit.
We gotta stock that museum, y'all.
I
will say...
almost died in the fucking Amazon. Went on a trip there, got yellow fever,
Like,
almost lost a leg, and then came back 50 pounds lighter.
It kind of sounds like Theodore lived his life in a perpetual state of almost dead. Like...
He got shot right before a speech.
This was as president, right?
This one he was running for his third term.
Okay, gotcha.
So he's about to give a speech. He gets shot, and perfect heart shot. It hit his fucking steel. It hit the glasses case and hit the fucking pamphlet, the little speech he wrote. Hit it, stopped it just enough where it was lodged in his breast. And he said, "Fuck it, gonna do the speech anyway." And eventually, doctors were trying to look at him, and he basically looked at the crowd and said, "I don't know if you've known it, but I've just been shot. But it takes more than that to kill a bull moose." That bullet stayed in him until he died.
Damn.
Man just did not give a fuck.
Do you know what the square deal is?
Yes.
Okay.
So we're gonna. Why?
I can't help but notice the Nick's getting a lot more help than I did. God damn it.
Oh, I know the square deal. I gave a brief.
Just wait, it's coming.
Yeah. So why I like Teddy, and mostly it's because he basically told J.P. Morgan eat his bull moose cock, and he's gonna break up the railroads from being a monopoly. It's basically what he told him. And a lot of people are like, well, that's political overreach. Teddy didn't give a fuck. Teddy saw all the corruption in government and said, yeah, we're going to stop that shit.
The corporate.
Yeah.
Okay, so what would you say to someone who was like, Teddy, you can't just break all the goddamn rules.
Big stick.
Okay, but the whole point of the stick...
I'm about to turn left. You better duck. I don't want to hit you with my dick.
The whole point of the carrot and the stick is you're actually never supposed to hit them with the stick. You're just supposed to point the stick.
Yeah, well, Teddy
didn't care.
Teddy was going to point the stick, and if it came to it, he was going to hit you with the fucking stick. Walk softly and carry a big stick.
He does strike me as a shoot first, ask questions never kind of fucking guy.
It's a lot like... I'm hearing a lot of similarity between Jackson. I think he was just scared to say Jackson was his favorite president.
Okay, so
It's close.
what qualities make you put him as an S tier president? Like what is he? Just his attitude?
Well, I'll give you the founding of the Wildlife Services.
Yeah.
That's a big... You have no idea. Like, modern Americans don't know how big a deal that is. We have more white-tailed deer alive now than we did when we landed here.
Yeah. He basically said you're not allowed to just rape and use this land and then just make it and just do what you will. He said, no, we're going to save it for the next generations and the next generations. Because he, being nearsighted for so long, when he finally did see how clear and beautiful the land was, he basically said, we need to preserve this.
Yeah. What's
funny is when he did get married on his honeymoon, he said, fuck you, bitch, and he climbed the Matterhorn. Instead.
Probably my favorite thing about the wildlife and the wetlands and just the environment type thing is he kind of viewed the environment
as a communal resource,
as not an inheritance to do with it what you will. He used it necessarily as a something that you needed to preserve in order to pass down.
Yes. He loved nature. He thought nature was beautiful. He said, this is something that everyone should have the chance to see.
Kind of arrogant to build a statue of himself, though, right? Like in the rock of a mountain?
Yeah, he put himself up there with Washington, Jefferson, and Lincoln.
Like the stones.
Well,
you know
why the other reason he's up there?
Because he's the one who paid for it?
Yeah, he's the one who funded it.
I mean, fair.
Plus, it's a national park.
Oh,
it's better fitting than fucking...
Yeah,
That's true.
What was the... what did he do? There's something bad about that mountain. What do people bitch about that mountain? It's Indian.
It's Indian.
Yeah, what do you think? Should we blow his face up?
No. Again, I'm actually really fucking pissed they're moving his statue away.
Out of New York?
I am so fucking pissed.
You know who else they're moving?
Because racism.
Fucking Thomas Jefferson. Yeah, the statue of Roosevelt.
They're moving it to the Dakotas where he
had a black person and a Indian person. They're not like kneeling before him. They're walking beside him while he's on a horse. And they're like, "This is racist."
Mother, I will buy that fucking statue if I have to.
Nick, you would buy so much irresponsible shit.
Yeah, I want Teddy's guns.
You're the reason that money doesn't buy happiness, because you would just have a bunch of pointless memorabilia.
I'm happy.
You wouldn't be happy.
I would be.
No, because you'd buy all the Civil War memorabilia, and then you'd look at World War II, or Vietnam, or North Korea, and you just wouldn't be happy until you had every single thing ever.
But I'd be happy buying it, damn it. I do want a bunch of stuff.
That's American.
I do want a bunch of, I do want one of Roosevelt's guns.
Okay.
I want his medicine stick.
What?
500 Nitro Express.
Is there anything he set out to accomplish that he didn't? I meant to ask this for years.
Third term? He set out to win a third term, didn't win a third term. Got beat by Woodrow Wilson. I think he even...
And even more flaming racist.
I think he actually, though, beat the Republican candidate by, like, a lot. He was, like
didn't take much to split up the vote, though.
He got the majority of the Republican votes. He was right behind Wilson.
I don't know that Jefferson got any... ending the slave trade. So ending slavery, because most of the Founding Fathers were against slavery. Well, and he didn't really do that.
I'm trying to think of what else Teddy did. He did a...
I know, it's hard. Because I'm not a history major. Or minor. Wyatt.
Faggot. Any more questions about Teddy? Because I can answer pretty much anything.
I've asked pretty much all of mine.
Yeah, I'm good.
Greatest president of all time. I was
three great presidents.
I was on TikTok and they said that the president, whatever month you're born is, this is your president, and you have to fight all the other months with a bar fight. In July was Teddy. I said, let's fucking go. We're gonna win.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to pick
professional.
Who would you pick in a bar fight? That's a good question.
Fucking professional boxer.
Like probably Teddy. Jackson, because he brought a pistol.
So did Teddy.
No. Jackson. No.
The problem is both aren't afraid to get shot.
Yeah, but
I think
you knocked Teddy Roosevelt's glasses off, and then Jackson shoots him in the head.
I think Teddy is energetic. Jackson is a fucking psychopath.
Yeah.
I love them both.
I think they both. It seemed you admire a very specific set of qualities in a president.
Men?
It's not
manly men.
There's only male
radical men.
I don't think it's radical either. I think it's.
What's radical about Teddy?
I think it's the attitude in which they take it on.
Was radical about Teddy.
That's true.
Go fuck yourself. Teddy did.
No, I'm not Nick. I'm
everything
not hating on it.
Teddy had to do what was best for the country. Damn it.
Yeah, that's the excuse they all use.
I'm sorry. Would you rather have monopolies?
He also helped form they weren't unions, but the construct of democratizing the workplace. He encouraged strikes and stuff for better wages and safety procedures and shit like that. Yeah. Hey, I'm a coal miner.
Wear a hard hat, damn it.
I'm pretty sure Teddy would have also been the guy oh, you're wearing a hard hat? Pussy. I got shot.
Sir, you made the law. Pussy.
Didn't say you had to follow it. Didn't say you had to follow it.
But you did. Fuck you.
What's funny is he shot a grizzly bear.
He also had a Bigfoot encounter.
No, I know he's talking about the Ballman story, and I fucking want the book, The Wilderness Explorer, the book he wrote that has the Ballman story.
Bigfoot encounter.
So I can talk about the Ballman story.
Please God, wrap this podcast up.
No, we're gonna talk about the Ballman story now. Fuck you. So Teddy talked to a man named Ballman, who was an actual mountain man. Why at the same time? All right, just get through the gist. Ballman's friend was killed by something he doesn't know. He got the fuck out of there, and Teddy was pretty well known for calling out horse shit. And Teddy also being an avid outdoorsman. Basically was we don't know what killed him, but something fucking did.
It's there's a dead fucking body.
He never says Bigfoot. He never says what it is. He just tells Ballman's story.
Yep.
And he says this is kind of the great mystery of the great outdoors.
It's a Bigfoot.
Whether or not Teddy believed in Bigfoot, probably not. Made it out of the dog door. Probably could never see the Bigfoot if it happened. But to wrap it up, so
I was gonna say if anyone was gonna kill a Bigfoot, it'd have been Teddy.
You can't see Bigfoot because Bigfoot's not real, guys.
So to wrap it up, he killed a grizzly bear, and then when he was asked about it by reporters or journalists, he basically said that a grizzly bear has very American qualities. It's a loner, but it's very aggressive. It have to be, but it's also arrogant and thinks it's not afraid of anything, and that could lead to its death. He said if he had his way, the grizzly bear would have been America's animal, not that oversized vulture of a bald eagle. So what he called it.
Yeah, Benjamin Franklin getting to say on the national.
We were almost a turkey, so you can consider yourself.
Yeah, but.
Literally the dumbest animal to walk North America.
Like I haven't never hunted turkeys, but I've hunted ducks before, and let me just tell you, turkeys, like as I was walking to our blind, they would just walk right the fuck in front of you, like
shotgun in hand.
Just shoot me, bitch. And I'm like, what the